Good morning and welcome to today's session. We had gone through a lot of content before, and it's my pleasure to continue from where you had stopped. I think the last time we were handling about the control flow, and we were looking at the loops and decisions. And in that process, you need to master about all those concepts and then be able to implement this in your academic journey as well as in problem solving. The purpose here is to gain the knowledge and the skills on how to work on such other than just thinking about passing an examination question. It has no basics when you just pass an examination question without knowing how to implement this in the actual nutshell within the working environment and your project development. Uh, because competency skills is what is key here, and you need to be able to master that and be able to gain much on that. Now, we need to proceed from where we had stopped. So I'll first of all open my NetBeans. Same to your side. Can you do that very fast? So as it opens, then I'll go to the last slide that we used so that we can be able to move together. Now, we had said about the differences between while, for, do while, enhanced for, an if statement, if else, nested if, and switch. So we had worked up to if else. Now I want us to complete with nested if and then look at the switch and complete the loop functions so that you know how to implement this completely. Um, it's very, very important for you to note about that and to be able to implement such. So, nested if, we are saying that it is used if inside another if. It can be used inside another if. So if you have the first if, which was answering the Boolean expressions plus one statement, now you can have more than ifs inside another if. That is now what we'll call it as nested, like a continuation of that. Then we have a switch, which is a test variables against the list of values. It is used to test variables against the list of other values that you have. That is the switch. For instance, grading of students' marks and awarding them their respective grades based on what they have received as the marks. Then that is switch. You can be able to do that. So before we look at the modifiers, packages, and imports, then let's finish up with this so that we can be able to have a better and clear way. So we had looked at the if else statement and we were able to complete with that. If you remember, if you run the file, you could be able to get the results instantly. So that is the answer there. You are an adult and your age is 20 years because we were looking at what is the age variable Then the age was to be checked and being given the age if the condition is met. And after the condition is met, the results needs to be printed out to the console and the conditions to be true where the condition is true. So we say that the if else statement executes a code only when the condition is true. And that is what you heard in the last section. Now, for us now to move forward, then I believe that my screen is very, very clear on your end. Is that true? You can confirm with me.
Yes.
Okay. Now we can now create another file for nested loop. So we can create here within our condition. Let's create another file, a Java class, and then call it nested if nested capital I if. So if I do that, you can see how I named it here. Nested if capital I capital N. I am using concatenation effect here to ensure that everything is in order. So it is within the control flow loops and decisions. So I'll finish so that we can have a file there. And after that, I'll remove this unnecessary code. And then I'll write there that an if statement inside another if statement. That is what it does. Therefore, here I'll remove this public so that you remain with the class nested. So that now we can be able to start from there. So what I'll be able to do is that shall be able to open. If I check here, where is the file location? So I can be able to do, this is called CMT213, that's the program. So let me go and search for that area, that location. I don't know whether it is, was it in the documents? Where did I push that file? Projects. Let me check under Java projects. 7211. Let's look at Java projects. Okay, Java projects where it is this one here. Then come here and load my code block. Open my Visual Code there so that we can be able to use that one. complete some work here. So this is the project we have opened. So I'll close the if else statement and also the if else statement. Then open our nested if, and now create here something magical. So here can be able now to have a public static that. Then we can say int age, and we are going to assign our age to 20, and then introduce our boolean, say that it has a license or has an ID. So you can give it if it has an ID, like for example a student. Does the student has an ID? Yes. So the student has an ID which is equivalent to true. So we assign that student has an ID to be true. And now after that we shall be able to give that that if the age is greater than 18, then if the age is greater than 18 and if the person has an ID, then we should print out that you are allowed to enter the club. For instance, you are testing for people to access a premise. So we are saying that you are allowed to enter the club or a bar or a restaurant. And else, if you don't have 18 years or you are not greater than 18 years and has an ID, then you need an ID to enter the club. So you should be able to give the ID. And if you don't have that, then we are going to prompt you that you are not old enough to be in that area. Because after checking the ID and we see that you are not greater than or equal to 18 years, then the security will have to deny you. You are not old enough to enter the club, and therefore permission is not granted. So that is what you should be able to look at and be able to implement in that area. So that is what you need to do. So you can proceed. You can proceed coding that. Proceed coding that. So are we together there? That this is a nested loop that we are checking. That if the age is 20, now if the age is greater than or equal to 18 years, so you are checking these two things, whether you are 20 years or whether you have uh, an ID which is true. So we are checking both of these, that whether you have an ID, and if you are greater than or equal to 18 years, then you are allowed to enter the club. And once you are allowed to enter the club, for the if you have an ID, then you need an ID to enter the club. If you don't have it, then you will not be allowed to enter there, and you are not old enough to be able to be allowed in. So that is a nested if. So you can see how they have been coiled here. You have this first one here, which ended here, and for this one you have tested with two elements, one checking if you have an ID, and also uh, trying to check whether your ID is meeting the standard that we need here. Sorry, the standard that we need here. So if it is not fitting there, then that is not qualified. So please complete that, and then we shall be able to proceed. So I'm waiting for you. Once you're done, let me know. Now, our nested loop is here, and we can run that file. And now you see here you are allowed to enter the club. Why? Because this condition here has been met by the initialized age that was placed there for this person. Then we have also cases where you will require the person to enter their own age. So you can modify the code to be able to request the user to input the age, and then now for you now to get the feedback on that case. So you can modify that. Let's look at now the next item, which is the switch, so that we can end these control structures and the loops, or decisions and the loops. So we can create another one here, call it switch, call it switch statement. Then we can, so that is what we are saying, switch statement, or just a switch, so that you can be able to have that. So finish. Then let's create that. This one, that. Now even here we have to ensure that we save that file very well. So we are in this. So we say that the switch statement allows you to make decisions after looping through a lot of conditions, or you wish to declare something out of the results that you already have. That is the variable against the list of values that you have. So that is what we are going to look at. Tests a variable against multiple values, and then it gives you the results. So let's go to that, so that we can be able to write our code well. So for this switch, we say that it tests the variable against multiple values. That is it. So that is what we are going to look at. And for this one, we are going to start with the public class intervals for us to be able to create some loop. So you can say int the day, let it be days like the 3 days, and then we want to switch the case using the days to be able to print Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we want to print Saturday and Sunday. And then if the day is not within that, then we shall be able to get a default statement that the day is invalid. So that is what we wish to have here. So print the days, integer days are 3. Then if the number of days are not part of that, then so here we are looking for which day? The third day. So what is the third day? The third day is here, which is case 3, which is Wednesday. So what is the expected results here? The expected output is Wednesday as the answer. But then if we will put there the expected day as maybe the 8th, then it should give us an invalid day. Okay. For instance, you say here day 8. So right now where I'm saying that the date or the expected results here, because we are checking for the integer date, the third day, we come here to the case area. That's where we have the third day. And when we run this code in this area here, you'll be able to see Wednesday as the results. And that is it. So that is Wednesday there. Why? Because it is the third day as per case 3 here. And for every case, at the end of every case, you have to end with a break. So that is very key. You have to state the case, give what to be printed out as statement, and then end with a break from each switch to another. Then you are switching with the days and how many days you are looking for the third day. Assume that we change here and then we ask for the 8th day or the 9th day. Let's say the 9th day, and then we say yes. So here when we rerun this, we should be able to get an invalid day. That is the feedback there. Why? Because it is not amongst our cases to be switched off. And within our cases, it is beyond the 7th one because we are looking at the 7 days of the week, Monday to Sunday. So that anything that is beyond that is an invalid day. So it's within our switch, but that is beyond our expected dates here. So it will fall under the default area because we have our cases up to the 7th, and therefore anything beyond that is going to be invalid. Even if you say here 8 and then you save it, if you rerun this, you'll still get invalid day. Why? Because it's not within our cases. Our cases ends at case 7. The next is a default value. So that is what I wish you to implement there and then be able to check on that. So do that very fast so that we can be able to move to the next item. that. So I'm waiting for you. We can proceed to the next item. So once you have done that, even if we rewrite, it will show us Wednesday as the output. Now you can be able even to modify this to be able to generate the students' grades or modify it to look like a grading. Now we can summarize it with a combined code that I want to show that can easily also obtain the student name and then be able to give the marks where possible. So how can we be able to do that? We are going to see that if we can be able to use the if else or nested loop issue, or even assign the student marks as per what they come. So we can combine. There are cases where you are needed to combine either of all these into one. So how can we be able to do that? We can have here an example, let's say Java class, and then we are going to say combine loop and decision, combined loop and decision. So let's just say loop combined loop combined loop, just like that, so that we can be able to have, or let's say combined loop for grades and marks, for grades and marks. So I'll combine that like that. So that's how I've combined it. So I'm saying combined loop for grades marks, so that it looks clear like that. I'm going to see how we are going to combining the loop function while printing out the grades and marks for the students, some few students, and we are just testing some few marks. So that is a class which we are going to use. Remove the public here so that we can be able to do this. So here we are going to combining let me just leave it there. I write it from this end, so we can come here to combine loop. So we are saying here combining grade based on the marks, combining if statements to calculate the grades based on the marks, and display the student names, the names, the student names, the names and their grades and their grades. So that is what I want to have here. And do that. Yes, like that, so that you can be able to see that area. So we can do that by having the class students and then we can assign the grades to that student. So we can start here by saying string. Start here by saying string name, and then we are going to give an int the marks because we want to give the student marks. Then within that, we are going now to say student, like student and we would say student, then we say here the string, then that and integer that. So here gives me to check so instead of giving me the student, then I'll be able to state here combined marks and grades such that it picks our class here. Our class, we are going to assign it the string name and the marks, which is in the integer format. So we have to use the this to be able to allocate them as constructors to that. So for us to do this, we can be able to write here, and then we are saying we are using a constructor to initialize the names and the marks for the students. And for this one here, we are using a constructor to initialize the name to the students. Let me remove this and then put it here. Such that we are combining. So we're using a constructor here to do that. So either you can pull this one here or you can still leave it here and it still works well. So that is it. So this is a constructor that we are initializing the name and the marks, and these ones here are variable declaration, instance variable declarations to store the name and the marks of the student. So after we've done that, we can now come down here and now do the void using to do what's called the checking. So check the grades function. So we have to check the grade function to be able to really find whether the student marks are available. So you can check the grade function against various stakes that you have. Maybe you want just to check from 90, 80, 70, 60, and anything below that. So up to 40. So you can extend this up to 40. See? So we can say here check the grade based on the marks from greater than or equal to 90 to less than 40. Okay, and then printing the names. So in case I say this, then I can be able to, let me cut this, and then I want to put it here so that it looks clearer to your end there. So what I'll be able to do here is you'll continue checking with all these. So I'll do here void check the grades so that I populate all the checks up to 40 for somebody now to be declared as failed. So by default, if you get below 40, then you are failed. So if the marks is greater than or equal to 90, it should be given that your grade is A, and add the name of that student. Say the name of the student and then say the grade that the student has. If the marks are less than or greater than 80 or equal to 80, that means from 80 to 89. From 80 to 89, then give the name of the student and then declare the grade of that student. So after doing all that, we need now to have our main class where we are now going to print out the results that we have obtained. So after all this, now we can be able now to give the final results, where we need now to assign the names of our students. So we can have the names of our students here by having a public class main, so that now we can now be able to declare the names of our students and create the names of all the students here. So I'm going to have the new students combined marks, and now I'm going to give the student called Alice, we are going to give the student called Bob, we are going to give the student called Charlie, we are going to give the student name called David, student name called Eve, the student name called Frank, and the student called Grace, and then be able to declare them all. So here we are creating an array for our class, which is combined loop for the grades marks objects with the names and the marks, so that our marks can be assigned to that specific student. And for that case, then we can now have a loop through an array, so that it can check the grades for each student and then be able to store search the results. So after that, then it is now going to check for us the student marks for that area, so that we can get all our students assigned the checked grades, and the grades must have passed the required results that we wanted. So for that case, then now we can now be able now to end that area, so that now we can have a complete function being done. So our code is now as clean as that. But now we have checked the method here to check the grades from 90 and above up to 100 to below 40, and from there now we are checking and then assigning the grades plus what are called the marks, or what the instructions are. And now we come now to the main class, where we are now using the array to be able to assign all our arrays to our main class, which we have created up here, called the grades, combined for loop grades and marks, and it is the class that we want to use it to assign the name of the students and their marks, so that that can be able to work perfectly. So we are also looking through here and then initializing this for our student here. So here we are calling the check grade method for each student. That is what we had written here, the checking the grades here. Void check the grades. So we were checking the grades to see if the student has met all these before we assign them that results. That's why we are saying here we are calling the check grade method for each student and then assigning them that. And remember here, we are calling this looping through an array to check the grades for each student, which we have already uh, assigned up here. We have done the checking here, and we have also used the constructor here to assign them the names and the marks that are required. So that is how we can be able to combine that. And here you can realize that we have used the if else if to be able to declare all the checkings, because you must have met the condition to be true before we can now declare or print out the results where it is needed. Then after that, now we can be able to save this, and after that, once we come here now and I open what is called combined. Let me search for that. Mhm. Combined for, so I can see it stressed here. Let me see down here. Then you can be able to refresh this, to reload this. So you can just lock it out and then open it again. Okay, I have seen what had happened here. So I think that is the code there. We have to change it to main class here so that we retain our class here for working on the grades. Now it has assigned it the class called main. So here we can give this one as the class called grades marks. Grades marks. And then I can rename my Java file to be grades and marks, like that. So once it is now that one, now can now have that being checked elsewhere. Yeah, grades and marks. Now the code is now okay, grades and marks. So that now we have grades and marks here instead of reading it as main. So that is how you can ensure that your code is looks like for that case, for us to have these results done. So I can easily do that within that area there, so that you go faster for us to accomplish many other things. So that is how that code uh, has to look like. So we have to refresh. So we have changed here to be grades and marks. And renamed here. Yes, I've just called this one so that I leave this one here. So this one here, it can be able to delete this file. Now I have my nil and complete code here. So that is it. So that is the code that you have, that I've done that combination. So let's see what is the results when we run. So let's do that and run the code. So that is the results that we are getting. Alice has an A grade, Bob has a B grade, Charlie has C grade, David has a D grade, Eve has an E grade, Frank has an F grade, and Grace has failed the exam based on what we have assigned here. Because we have assigned Bob has greater than 90, that is for the first student, who is here called Alice, and he has 95. Then Bob here has 82, so it will have to check from 82 here, 82 greater than or equal to 80, and assign the person the grade B. So that's why he has 82 marks here. So because now Grace has below 30 below 40, we are saying greater than or equal to 40, the grade is fail. But if not, then else if, then the student has failed the exam. So this student here called Grace has an assigned grade of 35%. So 35 is below 40%. That means that the student has failed the exam. Therefore, the results that we have here as the output is completely a clear indication of what we have defined there as the void grade checker, as well as what we have assigned the student has obtained. And then that is the results that we intended to have. So I think that is done. Then that makes up the end of control structures and decision making codes. So unless you have a question for me there, but I think I have finished what we were to do in that area. Have we well captured that concept? Have we all understood that? Or do we still have some issues within ourselves? Did I get the feedback on that? Have we understood that or not yet? Hello. Eh, are the members here? Have we understood that concept or we are not yet there? Okay, all right. So I don't want somebody to leave a class when he's not fully contented on that matter. So I think we can now switch to the next item. Now, having looked at that, having looked at that, let me make this to be more wider. So after finishing about the control structures and loops and decisions, we have looked at all of them and be able to implement them in our working and functionalities. Now, we have what are called modifiers, packages, and imports. So, you have seen throughout our coding, we have public, we have static, we have protected, we have default. Now, what are these? These are called modifiers, access modifiers. And the access modifiers, when are of these four main types. We have static modifiers, which are provided for the class level methods or are used to declare variables that are shared across all the instances. Then we have the final, which are modifiers that are used to prevent modifications. Once it is written final, it means that the class cannot be extended. It is used as the final variable, and that is, if you have used final within the class, it means that the class cannot be extended. And if you have used final in a variable, then it means that that variable cannot be changed. So there is no any form of modifications that can be done on that. So it prevents modifications. The final class cannot be extended on that. Then we have the abstract, which is a class with abstract methods. So when you use it as abstract, then class with abstract methods that subclasses must implement can as well as be able to use them. Then you have synchronized, which is used for thread safe methods only when one thread at a time is used. Now, we have these access modifiers that handles this visibility scope, that is in private mode, default mode, protected mode, and the public mode. So when you're using private, then it can be accessed only by the same classes, but not same package, subclasses, or everywhere. It cannot be seen. They are private and protected. When it is default, then it can be seen within the same class and within the same package, but it cannot be seen through the subclasses and everywhere else. Then if it is signed as protected, then it can be seen by the same class, it can be seen by the same package, and it can be seen by the same subclass or by the subclass within that same class, but it cannot be seen everywhere. So there are others that are still being protected and prevented from being accessed. Then we have when we set it to be public. For example, we say public static main void main, and then we are writing that class there. Just know that that class has to be accessed everywhere by the same class, same package, subclasses, and everywhere within that code. So that is what is available there. So we have package declaration first line. When you say about package and something something there, you can be able to do that. When you are importing a Java IO, that is Java input output within the import section, then it means that you want it to be accessed everywhere. That's why we are using asterisk within that Java import area. So if you are importing something and you are using IO or input output, then it means that you want to import everything. For example, if you say import Java, let's say import, because you are to import this what are called the java.io files, so that it picks everything within that. So you can just say import Java, and then you can say .io, and then you can say asterisk, and then you can be able to close that. That means that you are importing everything, all the input outputs that you even don't want even to use. So that is what we mean sometimes when you are doing some imports and whatever things. So I've commented that area. Now let's look at other things apart from that so that we can be able to end. So I think that makes the end of that lecture that we looked at. That covered data types in depth, variable scopes, inheritance and interfaces, exemption handling. This is now what is we are going now to look at next. But in the first lecture, we looked at Java, the origin, the features, and all the philosophy about Java. We looked at the classes, object, and constructors, being the blueprints versus the instances. We looked at the environment setup, JDK, path, IDEs, and so on. Then we moved on and looked at the data types, 8 primitives and reference types, all of them. We have looked at the basic syntax, hello world, identifiers, we looked at the naming rules and all that. So you have that concept. Then we moved forward and looked at the operators, arithmetic operators, relational operators, logical operators, assignment operators, implementation of these operators, all of them. So you have the clear indications, and we discussed about the differences, where to use a logical and how you are able to use all of them, and how they play in making decisions and so on. So we went on and looked at the operating object-oriented programming pillars: encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, and abstraction, just as the titles, just to have a breakthrough. Then in today's session, we are going also to look at more. Then we have looked at the control flow and the decision making loops and statements: while loops, for loops, do while loops, if, nested if and else if. We have looked at the switch and the use of breaks inside that. And therefore, we believe that now somebody can be able to execute and write all these things as we have discussed. So we are going to look at the next item, which is things like dates and time and other components. That's what I want us to look today. So for the entire of this other area, I believe that you have heard the notes I shared, and I've also gone through the entire of this slide with you step by step until we have finished that, and we have all these practicals having done. Let us now look at the other thing, where I want us to look at the arrays, date and time, and regular expressions. That is what I want us to study in now for in the next few in the next 1 hour again. So let's look at this now. So we are going to look at arrays, date and time, and regular expressions. So when looking at, we are going to look at the following topics: Java arrays, declaration of arrays, creation of arrays, processing of these arrays. We're going to look at date and time APIs, date classes, simple date formats, Gregorian calendars, and so on. Then you're also going to look at the regular expressions in terms of pattern, matcher, and syntax. So let's get to look at the arrays. So when looking at arrays, we are looking at fixed size sequential collections of the same type element. So array declaration and syntax, creating arrays with new, and you have seen that because we have used new, combined, for loop, grades, and marks in the just last example that we have done, and you've seen how we have populated that arrays to be able to assign every particular student with their respective marks. So that is creating arrays with new. Then we have processing with for and for each loops, and then passing and returning arrays from methods, and then the arrays utility class. Even though we have already finished that in that last example that I've shown you on the combined for loops functions. So what is an array? What is an array? An array is a storing data type or a component of Java or object-oriented functions. An array stores a fixed size sequential collection of elements of the same type. So if the elements are not of the same type, then an array cannot be written in a combined form. Like you have first of all to declare what type of array are you going to declare. If it is int strings, then you are going to input string types or character types inside your array. There will be no integer inside. So that's why we are saying is a fixed size sequential collection of elements of the same type. For instance, we say array, then you open the array bracket, and then you enter 0 to 6. The question is, how many elements are in that array? 0 to 6. How many elements do we have in that array? Let us have here an example. Let us have here an example. I have Jane, Moses, Lucy, Nicole, Brian, and then I have Miss. I have Penaldo. I have Penaldo there. I have Messi. I have Brian. I have Nicole. I have Lucy. I have Moses. I have Jane. Now, number one, what type of data type are these? What type of data types are these? Two, write a complete array format that can be used to store these data types. And then The last one we say how many elements are there in this array list. Then display, implement the display of these arrays in the of these names in the array list format. So let's have these three questions. Given this, now we start with the first one. What type of data type are these? Then I'll have that. And then we shall have the last one here. Yes, so that is very clear there. So I want the answers for this from you guys just now, so as to enable us to move forward. Array test question. Array test question. Array test question. So respond to that. Hello? 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 Yes, can we respond to these questions as fast as we can? Yes, guys, can we proceed here? Yes, guys, can we proceed here? Can you answer the following? Anita, Deborah, and we have answers here. Number one, what data type? What type of data type are these?
The strings.
So they are saying the strings. Good. Is there anybody with another different answer? Faster. Write a complete array format that can be used to store these data types. So this one has to go to let me look for someone here. Simon Muraya.
Let me write it in the chat in a minute.
It's okay. Then Simon is writing that. Let us have how many elements are there in this array? Being answered by Ted. Is there somebody called Ted? Letoya. Ted, you can respond to that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the elements are, I've counted the names and there are seven. Jane, Moses, Lucy, Nicole, Brian, Messi, and Ronaldo.
There are 7 elements.
Yeah, yeah, there are seven.
Okay. Is there anybody with a different answer on this? Then implement the display of these names in the array list format. So I want someone to display that. That will be Paul Miner, helped by Jacqueline Jepchumba. Paul Miner, helped by Jacqueline Jepchumba. Please, let's go faster so that we can end the session on time. Ted, I'm waiting for the answer. Oh, sorry, Ted had answered. There was somebody who was answering the question too. And these two must also give us the answer here. To write a complete array format that is used to store these data types. So how do we write it? So you are saying string, then you can give me that. So how many are these? You are saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's 0, 2. So you can either name them or we can represent them with this. So can we end it there, or we should have 7 included? Should we have 7 included there? Yes. So here you are saying there is Jen, there is Moses, there is Lucy, there is Nicole, there is Brian, there is Messi, and there is Ronaldo. That is it Ronaldo or Penaldo? So if we implement this way, have we done the correct thing here? And is this still correct when we mention like that? That these arrays are 7. So we have 0 up to 6, and then we end there. Can it be enough to store the 7 elements that we have here? So you start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you will not have the 7 there because you start from the initial point 0. So when you represent something like this, then we now know what we mean by the arrays, because it is a fixed element, storage element, that points how many slots are available there for storage. So you cannot go beyond when it is not fixed. Hello? Yes. Sasa mimi nilifunga saa ngapi na ni wao niliwaacha class. I'll look at that on Thursday when I come there. I'll get it. Mm. That key is just there. I don't know somebody mwenye ana struggle, but I'm very sure that key can just be found there because hakuna mahali kwingine itaweza enda. It cannot be closed without the key, so there must be the key for that. Wacha nione what I'll do. Maybe jioni hapo. So let us look at the arrays now. We are saying an array is used to store a fixed size sequential collection of elements. And when you are doing so, for instance, we are talking about individual variables, numbers 0 to maybe 99. You declare one array variable and use the indices to access the elements. So you use indices to assign the values and creating the list. For example, what you are seeing here. For the numbers or a value whose length is 10, can start with indices from 0 to 9. So the key point, array indices are 0 based and they run from 0 to array reference variable length 1 or -1. So accessing an index outside this range will always throw you an error if you are trying to access an array indices beyond that. So what other thing can we be able to do? So when you are declaring your list, you start from list with the indices 0, index 0, up to the index 9 for you now to have all your values being visualized. So declaring array variables. So mostly we have the preferred syntax, which is the data type, and then you can now give the array reference variables. We can as well as have an alternative that is from C, which is structured programming, and C++ type, where you use the data type and then now use the array reference variable. That's where you are now putting the values. But you see, preferred syntax is that within the data type, you can declare all of them, then you just say the array reference variable. So double. So you can say double, then the array, then you give the list. While when you're using alternative method, then you can say double, then my list, and now declare them in your list. So the style data type array reference variable is preferred in Java. So you have to use the preferred one, which is on this other side. This one here, when you are dealing with Java, then those others you can be able to use when you are using your structured programming or object-oriented one in that case. So that is very, very clear. Because sometimes when you do this, it will throw you an invalid concept or an invalid error. So complete creation in one statement. You can say double my list equals to new double. Then you can give the number of indices that or array values that you want to declare. So this one creates an array of 10 doubles, indices 0 to 9. Then we have creating arrays, method 1, using new operator. So you can say array reference variables equals to new data type, then array size. So this one is used to combine a declaration plus the creation. Uh, kita katika being distracted a bit. Just give me some, but we can proceed a little bit. So that is how you can be able to declare the arrays. Then if you don't want to use method 1, which is using the new operator, then you can use method 2 where array initializers or literal values are being used. So you can say the data type, then declare it with an array, then say array reference variable, and then you can give the values within that from the value 0 up to k, which is infinity, the one that you want to be displayed. Then we have double. You can maybe use also the data type name double, then give the arrays inside the array sign, but then you now use the keyword my list. Then you can now, which is now your array initializer, my list. Then you can now declare them using the curly braces. That is now where the size inferred is automatically given and issued. So you can declare the values themselves without just leaving the array size values. So the new operators allocates memory. When you use new, so it allocates the memory. So it uses new data type, and then you declare the array size, and then you now have the reserved spaces for such areas that sorry for that, it's administration work. Sorry for that, it's administration work na tuko na kazi mingi, so we must respond to both sides. So we were talking about creating arrays, and we've looked at that, and we have said that when you're using new at the beginning, it's an operator that allows you to allocate the memory. And you start with new, then you state the data type, and then you now give the array size. So where you are using the indices are zero based. So you can use the elements go from index 0 to array reference variable length that now you want to do. If it is now 10, then you can say 0 up to 9. Those are 10 variables. Just the way I had given you the other side there. So you cannot say 0 up to 7 because there are 7 elements. So you go from 0 to 6 because the first index is given or it's assigned by the indices 0, the first variable. So now processing arrays and complete examples. So you can process elements using the print elements for loop using index I from 0 to length that you want, or you can use my list dot length that gives the array size automatically. Then you have the sum elements. You can accumulate total using the plus equal operator, and then same loop structure as we can be able to as demonstrated in this code. And then we have the find maximum that starts with the my list and then the array size as the initial maximum. Then compare each subsequent elements to update if it is larger. Then the output is now, you can now be able now to get there. So the expected output for this code is 3.5, which is how many arrays do we have there? 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you are looking for a maximum value. So out of that, the total is 11.7, and then you are getting the maximum value, which is 3.5 from all these arrays. So for you to test that, you have public class test array, then public static void main. This is now the main class. Then from there now you use the data type with the array format, then use the my list and then list all the arrays in that area. And then you want to print it out. So we are checking using the for loop function to be able to print out all our arrays that we want. So we are saying for int I, which is equivalent to 0, that is the initial value, and then how many elements are we going to look at? So how many are they? 1, 2, 3, 4. So out of 4, then we are saying my list dot length, so that I don't have even to display it. Or you can say here I is less than or equal to 4, because how many elements do we have here? 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I is less than 4. Then I plus plus to increment them. Then you are getting the list while incrementing the values. Then perform the sum of all the elements. So we use double, then you do the total. Because when you take the value 1.9 plus 2.9, you'll get another extended number of decimal values. And for that case, then it is of which data type? It's a double data type. It's not a float. Neither is it a number or an integer. So it's going to be for all that. Now, for us to sum all of them also, we have to go through all the arrays and then get the sum of all of them. So that's why you are getting I equals to 0 for I equals to less than my list length, then auto increment it, and then now get the total, and then we use the plus equal operator to be able now to add subsequent values as they appear, so that now we can have now 1.9. Then we said when the plus comes before the equal, then we start with the addition. So 1.9 plus 2.9 plus 3.4 plus 3.5, giving us a total of 11.7. And then you print out the totals. And then down there now, we can now be able now to find the maximum value. Now, for you to find the maximum value, you are going to write that code in this manner. Let me reduce the font of this area. So I can just come here and just reduce the entire of these last elements down here, so that you can be able to see this other text that I've hidden down here. So I can reduce this because you have seen it already. Can put it to be 7, and then increase this one for adding, like that, and I can move it up so that you can be able to know how that goes. Now for that case, we can now be able to see that in totality. Now for us now to find the maximum value, we have to use the double, then initialize with another value called max, and then initialize that maximum value with the list of the arrays that we want to check. And then now we shall use again the for loop value, but then now we have to use the if function to be able to check before you do the maximum. So we use the if function, remember, to check if the value is true. And that is when we now have that my list I greater than maximum, then get the maximum which is equivalent to the my list of the arrays that you have. Then after that, now this one will be able to use to check all the lists that we have here in order now to get the value that is maximum out of all of them, and then be able now to give us the final results down there. So that is the kind of code that I want you to write on that area. So can you create a class? I want you to create first of all a section called let's go to our coding platform, go to package, add a package called arrays, create a package here, and then say here arrays. So once you do that, click finish. Now inside arrays, we can now be able now to create the file that I want you to create. Processing arrays and testing. Processing arrays and testing. Summing and printing out arrays. So we can write here that Java class, then you can say here array listing totals, and as well as getting the maximum, so that we cover all in one. So once we do that, now you can now be able now to have that being done the way we want it to be looked at. So we are going now to do or to write this complete code that I've said that you can be able to look at that also, so that you can be able to look at how arrays can be implemented in that case. So I want you to be able to use that approach, be able to make that array code. Be able to make that array code. So let us try to work on that. So we can start that by writing within our class area here. So let me open this, go to arrays, then open the array list here. So we are going here to look at declaring arrays. Integer list elements, calculate the totals and find the maximum value. That's what we are going to do here. And for that case, then now we are going to have a public class called array list totals. And for that case, now we are going to start with public static void main, and then we can be able to have a value here instead of double. Can be able to say double. So double, and what are we initializing here? We are not going to use my number, we are going to use my list. Okay. So from that my list, we are not going to use the values that are equal to that. Instead, we are going to use the double values: 1.9, 2.9. Then you are going to use 3.4. Then we can be able to have 3.5. 3.5. And then can be able to leave it there. So since we are dealing with my list, we can quick fix that with what we need here. So here is my list. Sorry. So here we can be able to give here uh, that is my list, and we give that variable here double totals and all that. So what I'll be able to do here is I'll be able to change some values, some elements here. After declaring that, we can be able to find the first element. So I can still remove all this and remove all this so that I can initialize those variables well and now display the totals as I want. Now we are saying double my list equals to our value. Then now from here, we can now be able now to have the first of all elements. So let us have the first of all elements being defined here within our array loops. Now, what are we going to do here? We're not going here to print out anything. Instead, we are going to use the for loop instead for us to have the for int equals to 0, then I equals to my list, uh, then giving us the length, and then we do the auto incrementing. So after that, now we can be able to give my list, and then the list itself will be declared there. So either you can say my list I, and then you leave it without a blank space before you declare something. And then after this for loop, now we have to state here something called, we have to give what is called the sum of all the elements. So can we sum, compute the sum of all these elements here so that we can be able to get the totals. And for that total, we are going to use the for loop function here to do our complete totals here. So get the total here, int I equals to 0, then use that to check the for loop size that is needed there, and then do now the sum of all those values using the operator here. So this one here, now we are going to use the operator to compute the values. So you add each element to the totals using the plus equals operator to help you do that very fast. So after getting all your totals, we can now move forward now to find the maximum value. We can now move forward to get the maximum value. So this one ends here, and we are still moving forward. Now this one is now finding our maximum array, and then we are going to get that done for that. So for us to get the maximum value, we have to use the for loop function here to be able to now use the maximum value and then check with our array. Assume the first element is the maximum value. Then what we do here is that now check using that for int that can now be able to check all that. Have our double values being listed here. For all the maximum value, let us check the maximum value and then relate it to all our array lists that we have, starting from the first indexed value. So assuming that the first element is the maximum, then we have to check the for loop with it before we now get the maximum and check if our array is meeting the maximum value that we want. Then once we see that within the array, what is the maximum element that we have, then we can now be able now to update that and then be able now to print out the largest number or the largest value out of that code. So that now we can now be able to have it as a printed element in the first or in the last section there. So we have all that done. Then we can now be able to test if the value within here is going to be displayed as our expected results. So let's come here and then be able to see within the array listing total max. Can be able to check here and then be able to run. So you can be able to see that these are the arrays that we have. This is the total amount of that, which is computed by the sum, getting the totals here. And then now, after doing the totals, starting from the initial value, then we are able now to get the maximum value out of that, which is 3.5 out of that area, as possible, as fast as possible within that section. So that is what we intend to get from there, and that is in terms of the array declaration, array storage, array listings, using the for loop to be able to identify the elements and check the variable sizes and add each element to the total using the operators. Then be able now to find the maximum value in the array that is needed. And that is what you need to have as the final results. But now we are getting now the maximum value plus now show what is the maximum value. So the maximum value here will have to be pointed out of this list that we have, which is from your array here. So it will check the first one 1.9, 2.9, 3.4, and then find until it finds what is the maximum value out of all the listed arrays. That's what this area here is checking. That get all the lists of the array files, check them with the to get the maximum value that is greater than all of them to be able to give you as the final results. So can we finish up with that? So I want to end within 45, that is around 50, that's 150, so that we can be able to have, I can read the attendance, and then we can be able to proceed. Can be able to proceed. So if you are done, let me know. So when you're done, you let me know. If you want me to move down, you can say. So you can be able to go through that and confirm with it. Let me go to your chat section here. So let me talk about something small here if I end that. So that is how you can be able to process array with that. So we have enhanced for loop for each elements, especially when you're using arrays. And even that one has been shown there, what we have done there. You can print all the elements using for each. For that, for each double element, then you can extend with my list, and then you can print out what you have declared here as an index to that double, which is the element. So you can do that. So you can use index access or reverse traversal to be able to print out all the elements that you want. So we have passing and returning arrays from methods. How can you be able to pass and return arrays from the methods? So passing an array to a method are done using the references. And these references refers to the method that receives the memory address of the original array. And you have the public static void. You can say print array, declare the integer, give the array identities, then be able to use the for loop, give out all the arrays that you want them to be called, and then you can be able to call the print array with the value that you want to be printed out. The same, you can return an array from a method, that is returning the type in the array type using the int class, our classic examples for the reverse of the values. So when you're doing that, you have to declare it within the class. So you see that now up here, before you say public static void main or whatever, you are saying it that public static int. So here, this is an array that you are declaring inside there. And then you can reverse that array with the list that you want to be generated. So down here now, you can now say the integer value of the arrays plus the results, and then use the new operator to initialize the length of the arrays and the data type that you want to be printed out. And then after that, you can now be able now to print out all the results that you are expecting, and then return the results, and you will get the reverse of the values. For example, you have the number 1 to 3, and you want to reverse that number starting with 3, 2, 1. Then that is how you can be able to do that. Okay, so that is the reversal function. Other things is that now we shall be able to look at Java util array classes, so that you can be able to see how they are used, and then look at now the date time in Java, so that you can be able to see that on the calendar. So I think in the next class we shall start from there, so that we can end our session there for today. Uh, so allow me to read the attendance. Um, so I think that one I have finished that end